Hello, everyone. It's Lisa Patterson with Daniel Ravenel Sotheby's International Realty in beautiful historic Charleston, South Carolina. And I am joined by Vannessa Kaufman in Manhattan and Marcella Carney in New Jersey. Welcome, ladies.
Hello, how are you?
Hey. Good. Good to see you guys. So we are going to talk today about, we like to keep it real in real estate and talk about things that happen to us and, let the general public kind of know what's going on. And hopefully it's informative to them so they will know how to approach real estate transactions. And we are going to talk about things that do not convey. And that is a real stickler because what happens, the seller's like, oh, I don't want the lights fixtures to convey, but I'm going to leave them up. Or I don't want those curtains to convey or this or that. And I always tell them, let's get it out. You need to get it out there before we take the photos. We don't even want people to see it because what happens as soon as you say it does not convey, the buyer wants it, regardless if they really want it or not, they want it. So what happens in your world? I know you're in different markets, but I have a feeling the exact same thing happens.
Yes, it does happen. Just this weekend, actually, I had a transaction. Everything was negotiated, and then out of the blue, the buyer requested to purchase all the furniture, except for the baby's room. So I almost fainted, knowing what was coming. And I said, well, why don't we just finish the transaction first and then we can start? No, let's do the furniture as well. So it was something that we had to do at the same time. So it took 3 full days of negotiating back and forth. We did come to an agreement, but I think had it been, and this is not to pat myself on the back, but had it been somebody who was much newer in real estate and who really couldn't handle personalities, this deal probably would not have happened, because you really have to be very careful and as to what you say, how you say it, when you say it, and not offend anybody. And it's just very difficult. And buyers or sellers really need to not do this to us.
Well, I have a question.
And to themselves, because if they want the transaction, so many deals fall apart because of things that don't convey. And yeah.
Well, I have a question about that. Here in South Carolina, first of all, that has to be furniture, would have to be a separate bill of sale. Lenders do not want to see it at all in the contract, and people don't realize that. And I think, so is it the same there in New York?
Yes, it is. That's totally the same.
The same in New Jersey, Marcella?
Correct. But I think with Vannessa, she was, trying to be an advisor at the 11th hour, and it's very delicate. So I get what she's saying. Like, you don't want the deal to fall apart because of furniture, and you have to guide them and handle them with kid gloves to the end. And a new agent probably wouldn't be able to handle it, would probably want to cry.
Yes.
Like, people don't realize, and what happens in these situations, especially with the furniture, the seller thinks they have something of great value, and the buyer is looking at it as used furniture. And they're so off on the price. And then they want to go through, well, I want this piece at this price, this piece at this price. It just should be a bundle. It should just be, you get all these items for X price, just a bundle. Yeah, that happens a lot here in Charleston, especially if they find out it's the owner's second home. They're like, well, what are they going to do with this stuff? Well, maybe they're buying a second home somewhere else and they want to keep the furniture. And then the other thing is, a lot of times there's family pieces in these homes, and they are like wanting them, and the family doesn't want to part with them, and it can ruin a deal. Light fixtures, that's a big one. I have one right now, and they are like, they don't convey. and a few things. And I actually recently did just an Instagram video about this. And when I went back to show the house, she looked at me and said, "Oh, they can convey." I said, "Did you watch my video?" And she said, "Yes." So,
Well,
like,
I actually told them to please tell to not include the light fixtures, because there were too many chandeliers and too many things that even could have gone that much worse had the light fixtures been a part of this transaction.
Right.
I usually write them up unless they've told me ahead of time in the listing agreement. All light fixtures, appliances, window treatments convey. Because, let's get to window treatments. Unless you're buying new construction and you're moving from new construction, those window treatments are not going to fit at your new house.
No.
Mhm.
Not going to fit. Let them go.
Absolutely not.
You have to lay it out right from the beginning. Like on our MLS sheet, it has exclusions. Like
Mhm.
today, I put a listing on, and specifically the sellers want to take their flat screen TVs. And so I spelt that out. We're not sure if the dartboard is actually bolted to the wall, but we spelt that out. And I asked him, excuse me, "Do you want any chandeliers?" "Absolutely not." I said, "Okay." And my closing that I had today, the sellers and the buyers asked to work together without the agents on those items. And there was $20,000 worth of personal items that the buyers purchased from the sellers. So that's a perfect world when that
Yeah,
happens.
perfect.
Involved. But, I just tell them, just like you said, a separate bill of sale. This is what it is. I mean, Vannessa had a big one though, because it was like all the furniture in the house. I have not had that, so to speak. But yeah, I think things should be laid out right up front, and tell your buyers this is not included, this is included. So know it before you put your offer in also. And it's interesting because we're finding that a lot of chimneys, fireplaces, flues fail because it's not grandfathered in. Like everything, the codes change. And so even fireplace is safe, the code changed it. So it's failed. So now what I write in the MLS is fireplaces, flues, and chimneys convey as is, no known effects.
Yes.
Oh, that's interesting. Well, we don't have that problem here, thank goodness. Oh
I,
my
but
That would be a major problem in one of those condos. Talking about TVs, that is a big one.
yeah,
Because, the buyer's like, "Oh, it's bolted to the wall, it needs to stay." Well, the holder that holds the TV is bolted to the wall, not the TV. I have to explain to buyers all the time, with like art. If a burglar broke in, they could take the art off the wall, or they could take the TV off the wall. But, I tell sellers, let it go, because you're going to have to take it down. You're going to take the bracket down. You got to repair the wall. TVs are inexpensive these days.
Yeah.
It could really mess up a sale.
They really can.
Good one on that.
Well, I had another one with the with the television.
Yes.
Who yeah, they argued about the television, and at the end of the day, it was removed. And then the owners removed the brackets. And the bracket, for some reason, was the size of a window. I kid you not. I measured it. And I don't know how or why it was that size, but they left the hole. And so that opened a whole other can of worms. Then, then we had to get a contractor. The contractor had to get insurance. They had to have permission from the board. It was, so yes. So things that don't convey become very problematic.
People think that sellers think they can be used as a bargaining and negotiating tool, and it ends up being a headache and a hassle and a heartache, because it gets pretty nasty. The buyers want it, and the sellers don't want to part with it, and it can ruin a deal. It's, like light fixtures stuff. I'm like, just take it out of there before we take photos. Replace it with something else of, of equal, appearance or value or whatever. If it's grandma's chandelier and you don't want it to go, you better get it out of there. I had another one. It was interesting. I had these clients that they had this 50 some $1,000 chandelier. It had been around the world with them. It had been in multiple homes. And they even had it in a home downtown Charleston that I sold to them. And their children always said that it looked best there. But that became an issue when it was not going to convey. And then they moved it to a house on the islands. And then they moved it again to another house. I sold them. And finally, at the last house, they said, it can go, it can stay. But it had been around the world. And I think he finally got tired of paying to move it around the world. But they literally bought it in another country when they lived there. But yeah, it was an issue.
Yeah.
Many times. What about we talked about window treatments. There's then you get into the things that people, like we have houses here in Charleston that are second homes, Vannessa. You talk about furniture, and we listed furniture does convey with the sale of the home.
Right.
And then you have the buyers that come in, well, I want the house, but I don't want the furniture. I have my own furniture.
So then what, then you have to calculate how much the furniture is worth?
Well, normally, no, because really it's, like I
So what
said, if they're getting a loan or a mortgage or anything, and we can't really, it's hard on that furniture.
Yeah. So regardless, so how do you guys handle it?
Usually it ends up,
Regardless of if they want it or not?
Well, sometimes the way I
value,
talk through
period.
it, yeah, sometimes the way I talk through it with them, if I have the seller, I'm like, you might have to get rid of this furniture, have an estate sale. If the people don't want it, have an estate sale. I have some great estate sale companies we can link you up with, sell it on Facebook Marketplace, whatever. Or if I have the buyer and they're like, I don't want it, I'm like, how about, I just had this happen. How about you have an estate sale? Take the money you make off the estate sale or Facebook Marketplace and buy what you want, or just have some extra money if you already have furniture. I'll try to do that first. Because if it's a second home or whatever, third home, fourth home for some of these people, and they don't want to deal with it, we just need to get rid of it.
The seller would have to get rid of it if the buyer doesn't want it.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, here
whatever.
too.
Yeah, they just have to get rid of it.
I did have a client, and she still laughs about it. The house she bought used to be an Airbnb, and they had all this furniture, and she had beautiful things. She said, I don't want any of this furniture, and they didn't want to get rid of it. And she's pretty thrifty too. She's fun. I said, won't you sell it? She sold it all. I mean, this is a college town. You can get rid of this stuff. She sold it all on Facebook Marketplace, made her a little extra pocket change.
Good.
We called it her extra shoe money. So there's ways around it. They don't want to keep it, but most of the time, we don't really take a number of that furniture and put it into the house and then deduct it from, if they don't want it.
Bonus for the buyer if they
It's a
want it.
bonus for the buyer. And some of these houses do have some fabulous things.
It saves the seller moving it.
Yes.
If the buyer wants it, if they don't want it, it's the seller's responsibility to remove it from the house.
And a lot of times the buyers come in and they want the furniture because it is going to be a second home for them, and they fall in love with it and it looks fabulous and they're like, everything fits and they want it, but then the seller doesn't want to part with it. So it's very interesting.
Well, that's what happened this weekend.
Yeah,
they loved it. They just said everything is just perfect. So we don't have time. Both of them are working people, people who work very hard all day long. One's a doctor, the other one's in finance. And they said, we don't have time to furnish the place, and it's perfect. So we want it. Well, they want it too.
Were the sellers staying in the area?
Now, luckily, the seller is purchasing a larger home, so they're going to need furniture anyway. So she said, at the end of the day, it worked out, but it was the full weekend.
Sometimes you have to weigh that out. The seller really has to weigh that out. What is it going to cost me to move all this stuff? Because moving companies are expensive these days.
Exactly.
The other thing is if you can get one, if you can get a moving company. Yeah, we have that problem here a lot. Yeah. So they really have to start thinking about okay, it didn't convey, but maybe I should let it convey. And then when I get all my new stuff, where I'm ordering it from will deliver it for me. But then that throws into another thing. Since the pandemic, there's so many things that you just can't get.
Yes, that absolutely.
Yeah, I'm still waiting on
Everything has a waiting time.
Yeah, I'm waiting on a Sub-Zero fridge that I ordered last February. So it's been pushed out to June. Well, I think we kind of covered that, people really need to start thinking about what conveys and what does not, and, get it out of there if you really want to keep it. This happens also here with all the gardens with statues and planters. It's another one. And that's a big one too. So they need to think about that. And, if you want to keep it, just get it out. And as a buyer, you need to realize that if somebody says something doesn't convey, sometimes you just have to back off a little bit. Ladies agree?
Yes,
Mhm.
absolutely.
Well, thanks for being with me today.
Thank you.
And if anyone ever has a real estate need anywhere in the world, feel free to reach out to one of us because we can help you with that. And until the next time, we'll see you again soon.